All right, I'm going to cover the organs of the respiratory system by following the path of a molecule found in air. So for example, perhaps an oxygen molecule or a nitrogen molecule. We'll follow the path of that air molecule down into the lungs and learn the parts of the system along the way. So the first place that a molecule of, say, oxygen would travel would be either in your oral cavity or your nasal cavity. I just labeled the nasal cavity number 1. There in the nasal cavity, that air will get warmed and moistened and filtered. And then the air will move into the throat, called the pharynx. Your pharynx is a site of attachment between your nose and mouth. So your nasal cavity and oral cavity both end up joining in the pharynx. So you use your pharynx not only for the movement of air, but also for swallowing of food. All right, now the next path for an oxygen molecule would be into the voice box, called the larynx, and then down into the windpipe, called the trachea, which is a cartilaginous tube that allows air down into the lungs. At the lungs, the trachea splits to 2 branches called bronchi. And if you follow those bronchi into the lungs themselves, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. They become known as bronchioles, and finally they will each end at a set of sacs called alveoli. All right, those parts that I just went over can be separated into 2 major divisions. Most of the parts I went over are part of the conducting division or conduction zone, and they are just passages for the flow of air. So that would be like the nasal cavity, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, the bronchi. Those are all just tubes or passageways for the movement of air. And then the respiratory division or zone is where actual exchange takes place, gas exchange. And we're talking external respiration here when I'm talking about gas exchange in the lungs. And that's going to take place at your bronchioles, which are the small branches, and your alveoli, primarily the alveoli.